Alright, so, here's what goes down. So, John the Baptist is in jail, right? And Herodias is the new king. There's the Herod, there's Herodias. I think Herod must be a root word for, like, evil jackass bastard or something. Because, like, he's got John the Baptist in prison, but he doesn't want to kill him because it'll be, like, a political problem for him. But then one day, this chick comes in who is, like, dancing for him, right? She's got her tits out, and she's, like, doing the do with the tits out, and he's like, damn, you got some tits out, girl. I will give you anything you want. And she has been waiting for this shit, and she's like, I want John the Baptist's head on a platter. He's like, fuck, damn it. Okay, so he kills John the Baptist over some tits. And then Jesus finds out John the Baptist is dead, and he flips his shit out. But see, whereas some people flip their shit out by, like, flipping tables, Jesus flips his shit out by leading 5,000 people out of the city into the nearby hills and fasting for several days. And his disciples come up to him and they're like, yo, Jesus, everybody's real hungry. What are we going to do? And Jesus is like, guys, no problem. How much bread have we got? And then the disciples are like, oh, we got like 7 loaves of bread. And Jesus is like, oh, well, how many fishes do we have? And they're like, oh, like 3. And Jesus is like, here, hand me that shit. Hand me that shit. Guys. Check it out. Check it out. Alright? Alright. Bread, infinite bread. Bread for everyone. Fish, so much fish. You could open up a goddamn sushi bar right now and still have fish to spare to smell like vagina for the rest of your lives, motherfuckers. And everyone's like, whoa, sweet, free fish from Jesus. This is awesome. And they eat it, and then they still have some shit left over. He feeds like 5,000 people this way. It's pretty dope. And then he's like, all right, disciples, get on a boat, sail away, and I'll catch up with you later. Hungry people, go back to the city. We're done protesting. I'm going to pray up on a mountain for a while. And then he prays up on a mountain for a while, and then he just gets up, and he just starts walking on the fucking water after his disciples. So they're on a boat, right? And they see this dude walking up behind them, and they're like, who the fuck is this? Oh, it's Jesus. Of course. So Peter sees him, and he's like, yo, Jesus, let me walk on the water towards you. And Jesus is like, sure, dude, just get in the water. So he gets in the water, and he starts walking towards Jesus, and he takes like 3 steps, and he just falls into the water. And Jesus pulls him out, and he's like, dude, you do not have enough faith. And Peter's like, dude, it's hard. It's hard having faith that you can walk on fucking water. Are you a wizard? And Jesus is like, I'm not even going to answer that. So then he goes to the city, right? And the Pharisees start asking him some more dumb questions. And he basically, and they're like, you know, why don't you wash your hands before you eat? Jesus is like, it doesn't matter if I wash my hands before I eat. What comes out of your mouth is what defiles you, not what goes into your mouth. And the Pharisees are like, that's demonstrably false. Like, what if a penis was going in? Jesus is like, shut up, no time to discuss. And then he, like, walks away and he gives his disciples some obscure warning about the Pharisees that's like a bread metaphor, because I guess he's got bread on his mind. And then he's like, pop quiz, guys. Who's the Messiah? And Peter's like, you the Messiah. And Jesus is like, right on, dude. You get to guard the gates of heaven later. And everyone's like, what the fuck? Come on. And then he's like, guys, by the way, I gotta tell you something. I'm gonna get killed later. And Peter's like, what? No. And Jesus is like, yeah, hey, you guys want to see some crazy shit? And they're like, yeah. And so he takes him up onto a mountain, and he fucking turns into Moses and Elijah, and they're talking to him, and they're talking to each other, and then cloud comes down, and it's like, I'm God, this is my son, you better listen to him. And they're like flipping their shit out up on top of this mountain. Then Jesus is like, guys, it's cool. They're all gone now. I just wanted to freak you guys out a little bit. And so then he's like, hey guys, you remember how I'm going to be killed later? Just thought I'd remind you about that again. And then they go into the city, and the tax dudes come, and they're like, Jesus, you gotta pay taxes. And Jesus is like, I don't really gotta pay taxes, but I'm kind of trying to, like, keep things civil, so I'm just gonna pull some money out of a fish. So he pulls some money out of a fish, and he pays the taxes, and I mean, yeah, fuck, I'd pay taxes if I could pull money out of a fucking fish. But then he's got, like, this whole strange obsession with children that he's talking about, and talking about how, you know, if your hands give you trouble, you should cut them off, and if your feet give you trouble, you should cut them off, and he's really all about just gratuitous amputation and laying his hands on little boys. It's a couple of weird obsessions Jesus got there. But then also, he says, very specifically that the number of times that you should forgive someone before they finally just fuck the pooch completely is 77. Imagine if someone punched you in the dick and you forgave them and they punched you in the dick and this continued 77 times, my friend. You would not even have a dick to punch after time like 37. But I guess he knows what he's talking about. I mean, people still like him, and he's like, you know, doing this whole, he tells this whole story about like a guy, he gets his debt forgiven, but then he proceeds to turn around and like choke some other dude, Bart Simpson, Homer Simpson status, over a debt that he owes him, and then the guy who forgave the debt finds out about it, and he's like, dude, fuck you, and he unforgives the debt, and he has him get tortured, and Jesus is offering that as an example of how you should forgive people. I mean, it's a very specific situation, and everybody's kind of an asshole, but whatever. So, then the Pharisees ask Jesus about divorce, and Jesus is like, duh, you're not supposed to get divorced. If you don't like your wife, you shouldn't have married her in the first place, asshole. And then some people bring a bunch of little kids to Jesus so he can, quote, lay his hands on them. And he does it, and it's great. And then some rich guy comes up, and he's like, yo, Jesus, how do I get into heaven? Jesus is like, sell all your shit. And the rich guy's like, no, fuck that. I could buy whores and create heaven on earth. And Jesus is like, fine, dude. And the rich dude's like, fine, dude. And Jesus is like, you know what you are? You're an obese camel. I bet you couldn't even fit through the eye of a needle. Because that's what it's like when you try and get into heaven and you're rich. And so that doesn't end very well for anybody. And then he tells this story about unfair labor practices where like these dudes get paid the same for like working for 1 hour as the dudes who've been working since the beginning of the day. And then he heals some blind dudes, and then he, like, talks about how he's gonna die again. It's all starting to get pretty predictable, but then, suddenly, he gets to Jerusalem, and he just starts beating the shit out of dudes in the fucking temple for trying to sell shit. And he's actually flipping tables, getting up on the tables, and knocking motherfuckers out, and it's rad. And then he comes out, and he's hungry, and he tries to go to this fig tree and get some figs, but there's no figs on the fig tree, and so he's like, you know what, fig tree? You're gonna be withered forever. And he just, like, fucking withers that fig tree. Jesus is getting kind of cranky. Like, he needs to take, like, a little nap or something. But then he keeps going, and he tells a couple of stories that are also about vineyards, and basically they all have the same message, which is like, you know, you should believe in God, and if you're a jerk, then God is going to show up and, like, beat the shit out of you and ruin your shit and stuff. And then he kind of sits down with his disciples, and they're all listening to his stories, and the rest is a story for another time.